We're live.
We are live.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting. I'm Graham Spellman, Chair of the Schools Forum. Since our last meeting, I'm sure that most of you would have been advised of the very sad death of Melanie Ellis, who is West Berkshire Council Services Lead on Finance. As you all know, her work and attendance at forum meetings has been fundamental to the discussions and the decisions of the forum over very many years. We have all got to know and therefore appreciate Melanie's depth of knowledge and ability to keep us fully informed of all finance matters pertaining to our schools. We should then sadly record at this time our immense gratitude to Melanie for all that she has done on behalf of and for the Schools Forum. I therefore believe that in the circumstances, it would be appropriate that as a group, we should take a minute in silence to reflect upon our thoughts and prayers for Melanie and for her family. Thank you, everyone. Today I'm assisted by Jess Bayliss, who is our clerk, and Sam Chiverton, who will be our Zoom host for the meeting. Other members of the forum who I believe are present are Nicole Browning, Paul Davey, Keith Harvey, Joe MacArthur, Joe Lagares, Jay Armstrong, Chris Prosser, John Hewitt, Jackie Davies, Trevor Keeble, Michelle Harrison, Leslie Roberts, Phil Spray, David Fitter, Chloe Somerville, and non-school members, Reverend Mark Bennett, Richard Hand, Jamie Morton, and councillors and officers from West Berkshire Council in attendance. Councillor Heather Codlin, Portfolio Holder for Children and Family Services. Councillor Ian Cottingham, Portfolio Holder for Finance and Corporate Services. And I believe Anne-Marie Dodds may be with us as well. Executive Director for People, Children and Family Services. Neil Goddard, Service Director for Education and SEND. Nicola Ponton, Principal SEN Manager, and Lisa Potts, Finance Manager. Before we start, I'd like to explain that tonight's meeting is being live streamed on YouTube so that members of the public are able to follow our proceedings. Can I ask firstly then, Jess, as our clerk, if you have any apologies, please?
Yes, Chair, so I've received apologies from David Ramsden, Charlotte Wilson, Julie Lurie, Rose Carberry, Hester Collicutt and Beth Kelly, and also just to add that Jackie Davies and Michelle Harrison will be arriving slightly late to the meeting.
Thank you very much indeed. So item number 2 is the minutes. Can I ask anyone who was present at the last meeting, please, if they can propose that we accept the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of December 2024. I'll have a proposer, please. Thank you, Phil. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Trevor. can I ask Jess then if you put that to the vote, please?
Yeah, so can I ask you just to raise physical hand if you're happy to accept those minutes? Okay, and anybody wishing to be against? No, okay, and they're approved.
Very much, Jess. Item number 3 then is actions from our previous meeting, and we only had one action there, and that's on our agenda for later in the meeting. And we'll come on to that at agenda item number 13, I believe. So item number 4, do we have any declarations of interest, please? No, I don't think so. You've not been informed of any declarations of interest, Jess?
No, I haven't, no.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 then is membership. Do you have anything to add on membership, please, Jess?
Yeah, so just a couple, just one really. Sorry, Michelle Harrison's term of office is due to end in February, and following consultation with the SBM group, she's confirmed that she's willing to continue for a further term. That's the only update at this time.
Good, thank you very much. Move on then to items for decision. First item on the agenda is then item number 6. And this is the budget for additional funds for 2025-26. Lisa, are you able to go through this report, please?
Certainly can. So this report is to set out the proposed 25-26 budgets for the Growth Fund and Additional High Needs Fund. And the report also has an update on the Growth Fund criteria. So in the recommendations we have that we have this agreed to distribute the growth fund across the all schools via the schools formula. At the time of the report being written, we didn't know what that value was, but we have since had an update, and the value of the growth fund for 25-26 is 307,452. The other thing we need to have a look at is to set a high needs budget at £200,000, which is for the disproportionate high needs, where schools have got a disproportionate high number of children that they're supporting with SEN needs. I don't know whether there's any questions on that. It tends to be a fairly regular report that we see every year. Trevor?
You have a hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, it's a question of my intelligence. Is this just for West Berkshire children, or if a school has children from Reading and West Berkshire, say, does it cut across both unitaries, or is it purely for West Berkshire?
For the disproportionate high needs funding,
yeah,
we try and include other children who are in other authorities. The difficulty we find sometimes is that where we get the data from is from our capita system, and that only has live children from West Berks. If they're a child that's been on the system for a little bit longer, we do tend to have some of them on the system, but we haven't got the facilities to be able to update that on an ongoing basis for children who are not in our authority. So I know we have had a couple of schools that have questioned what the calculation includes. So if they come back to us and suggest that actually they feel they have more children than what the average is, we will then review that on a case-by-case basis.
thank you.
Leslie wanted to ask something.
Yeah, that was one of the things I brought up at a meeting I was at this morning, because if you do raise it and challenge it, you can be backdated. So it's someone looking at your numbers to make sure that it's right, because it doesn't pick up your over the border kids.
Thank you, Leslie. Does anyone else have any questions or comments they'd like to make on this topic? Okay, if not, then we need to have 2 separate votes. The first one is for item number 2.1 on page 11 of your pack, and that's to agree that the 2025 allocation for growth is distributed to all schools via the schools formula. This is a decision for school members only. So if, could I ask for a proposer to accept that motion, please? Thank you, Nicole. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Kate. Jess, if you could take the vote, please.
Yep, so if you can indicate if you're for or against the proposal. So J Armstrong.
Sorry, the mute button wasn't working. 4.
For, thank you. Nicole Browning,
Thank you, Jess. 4.
Paul Davey,
4.
David Fitter,
4.
Keith Harvey,
4.
John Hewitt,
4.
Trevor Keeble,
4.
Joe MacArthur,
4.
Chris Prosser,
4.
Leslie Roberts,
4.
Field Spray,
4.
Chloe Somerville,
4.
and Edwin Towell.
4.
I confirm that's approved.
Thank you, Jess. So the second part then is to set the additional high needs fund at £200,000. This is for all, a vote for all 4 members. Could I have a proposer to accept this recommendation? Can't see any hands. Oh, thank you, Phil. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Keith. Jess, if you could take that vote, please.
Yeah, so again, if you can indicate if you're for or against. So J Armstrong.
4.
Thank you. Reverend Mark Bennett,
4.
Nicole Browning,
4.
Paul Davey,
4.
David Fitter,
4.
Richard Hand,
4.
Keith Harvey,
4.
John Hewitt,
4.
Trevor Keeble,
4.
Joe MacArthur,
4.
Jamie Morton,
4.
Chris Prosser,
4.
Leslie Roberts,
4.
Graham Spellman,
4.
Phil Spray,
4.
Chloe Somerville,
4.
and Edwin Towell.
4.
Yeah, that's approved.
Thank you very much, Jess. I'll move on then to item number 7. This is Central School Services Budget for 25-26. And we have 2 recommendations that we need to take a decision upon. Lisa, would you like to introduce the report, please?
So the Central School Services block covers a number of services which are listed or shown in the table in 5.1. A couple of areas that have seen increasing costs. The school admissions team are finding that they have quite a lot of additional work due to where we've had refugees come in and a lot of change of school places in the area. So that has got a small increase of a casual budget. We also have additional costs in the education welfare team because they are taking on more children to support. And the other area where we've had a big increase is to do with the cost of the CAPA system. So we did see a reduction on this a couple of years back when the system was moved to the cloud. And unfortunately, the estimate we had in there for the future year was not quite enough. So we have got a deficit in the current year for that, which is why we've seen a large increase on there. This head spending group has requested that we carry out a value for money review on this item. So that will be something that we'll bring forward for the papers for 26-27. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions or any comments to make on this item? No, I don't see any hands. In that case, I think we can take the 2 items under 2.1 and 2.2 together as one vote to make life a bit simpler. And that is to agree to the Central School Services block budget. And as per the request from the Heads Funding Group, a review to be undertaken on the value for money of services in the Central School Services block. This is a vote for all forum members again, so can I ask for someone to propose the motion to accept both of those items, please? Thank you, John, and thank you, Chris, seconder. Can I ask you to take the vote then, please, Jess?
Yep, so if you can indicate if you're for or against the proposals. So Jay Armstrong.
For.
Thank you. Mark Bennett.
For.
Nicole Browning.
4.
Paul Davey.
4.
Thank you. David Fitter.
4.
Richard Hand.
4.
Keith Harvey.
4.
John Hewitt.
4.
Trevor Keeble.
For.
Joe MacArthur.
Against.
Jamie Morton.
4.
Chris Prosser.
4.
Leslie Roberts.
4.
Graham Spellman.
For.
Phil Spray.
4.
Chloe Somerville.
4.
And Edwin Towell.
4.
Yeah, that's approved.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Jess. That concludes our items for decision this evening, but we have a number of items for discussion. The first of which is agenda item number 8. This is the dedicated schools grant for 2025-26 final allocations. And can I ask Lisa again, please, if you can introduce this item?
No problem. So we follow the national funding formula, which is used by the DfE to calculate the blocks. And we had a settlement just before Christmas last year. The table in 4.1 shows what the allocations are based on the October 24 pupil numbers. The big one where we have had a big increase changed is in the early years block, and that is because we are now funding additional hours for children who are 9 months plus. So we have had an additional grant come in for the new year. Other areas, we did see an increase in the Central School Services block, which has helped cover some of those areas we just discussed. I have no other comments to make on that one.
The information's obviously in the pack. Does anyone have any questions or comments to make on this item? No, I think you're getting an easy life this evening, Lisa. Okay, we'll move on then to agenda item number 9. And this is the schools funding formula for 2025-26. To note the final formula rates and allocations to schools. Lisa, again, can you please introduce this?
Yes, so there are a couple of tables in the appendices to show what the final formula rates and the final school allocations are going to be for 25-26. These are based on the items in 3.3, which were a part of the consultation that was held at the end of last year. So those figures are there for information, and you should be able to pick up the value that your school will be receiving for the new year, although it is a bit small to read.
It is quite small, but I'm sure those who are interested in individual schools will be well aware of the numbers and their implications, of course. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is the Growth Fund 24-25 payments. And again, Lisa, can you please introduce this for us?
Yeah, so we obviously just talked about the growth fund in the decisions just now. So the growth funding even is allocated by the DfE. That can either go against into the school's formula, which we just agreed, or it can go to form a growth fund. We have got a table in 5.4, which shows the forecast of the growth fund at the end of next financial year. In the current year, we've only had one application from Trinity School. And this paper is just setting out the payments that are being made for the current year.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions on this topic? Any comments to make? No. Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 11, which is the High Needs Block Budget 2025-26. Perhaps Nicola, could you introduce this for us, please?
Good evening, everybody. This is the High Needs Block report that's been updated from the one that you saw in December. Most of the detail remains unchanged, but the numbers have been adapted to reflect placements that we have made during that time, and also following some feedback from the Heads Funding Forum, we've been looking at increasing our places at some of our specialist provision, and I met with John Hewitt, the head teacher at the Castell Theo, who has very kindly agreed to extend that provision and provide an additional 6 places at that provision. Obviously, that does have a cost impact, which is reflected in this report. Does anyone have any additional questions from this report?
There's a lot of information there. Thank you, Nicola, in your report. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No? Okay, that's good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Nicola. Item number 12 then is early years funding rates to providers for the year 25-26. Lisa, could you please, I don't believe Beth's with us, if you can take us through this report, please.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So we normally would produce these rates when we bring the budget for the future year. But the DfE have requested that we publish our rates provided by the 28th of February. So we needed to bring the rates part forward. So the next meeting we will have the actual budget for 25-26 for the early years area. In table 5.2, we show in the rate for the various different funding streams. So we do have uplifts for the 3 and 4 year olds, the 2-year-olds, and the under 2-year-olds. The quality rate is staying as it is at the current time, and also the early years pupil premium will stay as it is. And the disability access fund is set by the DfE, so that's a value that they've put forward. We had discussions with the early years funding group, and they felt that that was a fair rate for those different funding streams. We have to be able to pass through 96% of the grant that we receive as an authority. So what we've done is match that 96% best we can to the different rates of the different streams, because we are conscious that there is still a deficit on this block currently. So they were the minimum levels we could kind of go for. And I say the early years funding group seemed happy with those as a suggestion for the new year. And it's just whether there's anyone here that would like any questions on how we've got to those figures.
Yes, Keith, you have a question, Paul.
It's just one question, just about the quality rate. Obviously, all the rates have gone up, or pretty much all the rates have gone up, apart from the quality rate. And I just wonder, obviously, we've got the teacher pay rise and things like that as well. I just wonder why that hasn't increased, at least in some way.
I think possibly because the deficit is still quite large at the moment on the early years block. I think there is going to be a review around who can receive the quality rate, and there's going to be a group set up in the new year to be able to discuss what criteria meets that quality rate. So I think once that's been looked at, it may well be that the quality rate will change for future years, but for the moment they want to stay that at the current level, pending that review of the criteria for the quality rate.
Okay, so is that okay, Keith, let's answer your question. Yes, Chris, you have a question.
Yeah, I think you've probably answered it for me, but are you saying then that the rates are lower than the local authority rates given because you're trying to get rid of that deficit?
Partly, yes. So the rate that we receive as an authority, we're
Yeah.
allowed to keep 4% of that to help towards costs of systems and checking the quality of the provision, those sorts of things. So the amount that we receive as an authority is obviously higher than what we then give out to the providers. But the DfE stipulate we have to have that at 96% for the 25-26 financial year. We've not yet, because these rates only came out just before Christmas, we only were just able to get these rates formulated and calculated in time for the report deadlines. What we hope to do for the next meeting when we look at the budget for 25-26 is to see what impact that has got on the deficit moving forward.
And sorry for my ignorance. I can't. Keith mentioned the quality rate. Where's the quality rate? I can't see it.
It's on table 5.2. It's the second line down, 60p an hour.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Chris. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? No, I don't see any hands. We'll move on then to agenda item 13. This is in response to a number of questions that Trevor raised previously, and perhaps I can ask Neil if you can take us through this answer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So as set out in the minutes of the previous meeting, this was a written response and a report response to a number of questions that Trevor raised that we've gone through and answered in hopefully some detail that provide an oversight of the work that's going on in all these areas. I know this is an area of concern for all of us in terms of ensuring all children have access to a suitable education and the work that we're doing to ensure that there are sufficient places and services to support them in accessing that provision. I won't go through the report in detail. Hopefully colleagues have a chance to read through it. I did receive some further comments or questions from Trevor, which I'll sort of deal with first, and then give the opportunity for people to ask questions beyond that, if that's okay, Chair. So I think the first one was about on page 72, appendix 2 is mentioned, but then not included. I think that's because that was part of a DBV piece of work, and we'll circulate that after the meeting. And apologies that wasn't included at that point in time. The next question was about also on page 72 about the actions that are being taken, and a comment that these are all pre-exclusion. Well, of course, you know, that would be our preference, would be to avoid exclusion in the first instance. And so there's a great deal of work that needs to be going on in order to support schools to meet the needs of pupils within the school and work with us as proactively as possible with joint responsibility to ensure that that exclusions are minimised wherever possible. And so I think that's part of what's happening there. It also talks about expanding alternative provision, which I know is a conversation I've had with a number of heads as I've visited. And I think that's also within the context of the development of a commissioning function. So through DBV, the need for a clear commissioning function was identified for the local authority. So that is a service which engages with the market, works with the market, develops the market for placements and access to services outside those which the local authority or schools are able to provide. Does lots of other work as well around negotiating costs of placements, works with children's social care, those sorts of things as well. And actually the development of alternative provision, a broader breadth of alternative provision within the area, is part of what that commissioning function will be doing. And that's going to go through a final sign-off stage to get that commissioning function put in place, and will be part of the council's budget proposals for next year around transformation. So that's key around that in terms of expanding the route for alternative provision, and not just the alternative provision that we're able to access, but the alternative provision that schools are able to access and make use of. Which is not to say we clearly have an outstanding provision locally in iCollege, who provide a wide range of services but we need to be clearer about that relationship with iCollege in terms of giving them the certainty around funding and services that are able to be provided, and then expanding that so there are other provisions as well that meet a variety of needs, and that's really, really important. I think the final one was about the fair access protocol. So colleagues, be aware we have a pupil placement panel and we have fair access arrangements where children who are pupils who are deemed hard to place or for other reason coming out of the legal system, for example, schools come together, have a conversation about how those pupils' needs can be met, and a review of the existing PPP and FAP arrangements is underway, and that is currently with the director management team within Education and Children's Services with Anne-Marie's team to have a conversation about what that might look like. And I know Melissa and others have had conversations with schools, and we'll be wanting to come out and have a broader conversation about that going forward. So imminently, which is the question, what does imminently mean? Imminently means that work is actually underway and ongoing, and I think some people will be engaged with that, but all schools will be engaged with that going forward so that we can ensure those arrangements are fit for purpose. And there are some really fundamental questions in that, such as, do we create a budget for fair access which supports the reintegration of children, that sort of thing? How do we chair those meetings, oversee those meetings, challenge those meetings, all those sorts of things. So those conversations are being had. So that's a piece of work that is absolutely live at the moment, having conversations, and there'll be a broader conversation about what that looks like going forward. So I think that was the questions that I was asked, Chair. Happy to take any further questions from the group, of course.
Thank you. Trevor, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thanks very much. That's really helpful. A couple of things. The first one on that final point. So are you saying that schools can have students imposed upon them, and if there's a sort of discussion around a child who you want to place and does the school have that right to say no, or how does that work?
So the intention of fair access and pupil placement is that by bringing all schools together, there is a conversation and a mutually agreed way forward. And locally, that has worked well, I would say, my experience of that, over a period of time. Now, my other experience of these things is they go through cycles when there are challenges, and that could be for lots of different reasons. Particularly if a school, for example, were to have a poor Ofsted or other challenges, that can be place numbers, all sorts of things, where that complicates that conversation. And if there is not a feeling of equity across all the schools, then that can become quite challenging. We have to strengthen that again. So this proposal that's coming through is not about the current arrangements are failing, because we are still being able to place. This is about ensuring they're fit for purpose going into the future, and that everybody's really clear about how that works. And like I say, things that might well supplement that work, including, for example, having a budget that sits alongside it to support reintegration. In answer to your question, through fair access, there can't be imposition, but the local authority obviously has the opportunity to direct a school to take a pupil if it feels that a place is being declined for a reason that is not covered by the regulations around admissions, fair access, and all those sorts of things. I'm not ever keen to direct schools. That's not what I want to be doing, or the local authority wants to be doing, but it is a tool that is available, and we have to consider those as they come through. But like I say, that is secondary to the fair access pupil placement panel group, which is a collaborative working together, and why we want to strengthen that so we don't get to the position of having to direct or apply for a direction from Secretary of State if that's necessary. Sorry.
Okay.
Chris, you had a point to make.
Yeah, my understanding, Neil, was that the reason the fair access protocol is being reviewed is because it wasn't working. And certainly my experience last year, having been part of some of those meetings, was that it needed to be streamlined, and there needed to be a clearer process of placing those students and actually understanding the way the fair access meeting should run. So my understanding was that actually we are looking at it because it needs to be changed and improved in the way it's administered.
I think that's a fair comment, Chris. I mean, having worked in other local authorities, the way that, take secondary, all of the secondary heads come together and have a conversation, that doesn't happen everywhere, and we shouldn't take for granted the positivity and the work that you all do with Jackie and others to make it work as well as it can work. So it's not a response to the whole thing being inoperative, but I think you're absolutely right. There are concerns that have been raised now, and I think those are going to become more regular because of the pressures that schools are under, the pressure on the high needs block and all those sorts of things. So your comment is entirely fair that there are concerns, and that has led to this. But like I say, what I don't see is a completely dysfunctional system where heads aren't even talking to each other, not having those conversations. That is happening, but there are within that pressures which may lead to a point where agreement can't be reached and we can't take things forward.
Yeah. I was also, it was encouraging to hear you talk about iCollege, and I'm glad that Jackie's just joined as well, because that was certainly a conversation that secondary heads had last week, because seeing how iCollege has evolved through time, its purpose has changed, and we really need to really think about iCollege and its, what we want to use it for moving forwards, and certainly, to increase capacity is absolutely what needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is part of the thinking as well. As I said, it's really important that we give iCollege the very best opportunity to continue to be as successful as it is, and that can only be delivered through them having some certainty around funding, places, what's expected of them, those sorts of things. And it's been really beneficial to the local system that iCollege has been as flexible as it has in terms of adapting, growing, changing its offer. But we need to, in order to secure that and give the security that we need, we absolutely need to be defining that relationship, what's expected, what can be delivered, and how that's funded, so that they have the certainty to make the decisions they need to make in the brilliant work they're doing.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Trevor.
Sorry, yes. Just very briefly, one of the questions I asked, which you didn't reply to, is around pupil referral units. And you say, and this is under page 72, 4.13.7, under improving strategic planning, create SALA and enhance service offerings. What does enhanced service offerings of pupil referral units actually mean, please?
Okay, this is similar to what I was saying about alternative provision, Trevor. Again, we have some brilliant. We're so fortunate to have iCollege in place and everything that they're able to offer. But the needs of children are so diverse that we need to be able to respond to all of those in an appropriate way. And again, that may be through services accessed by schools or accessed by the local authority when a child doesn't have a school place and those sorts of things. And again, that's what this is about. It's about stimulating in the right way that market, that delivery. It's always very difficult to call it a market, isn't it? Because we're not talking about a commodity here. This is children's lives, and but that's what it is. We need to make that offer as broad as it can be, as effective as it can be, and align it with needs going forward. And that's really all that means. And again, commissioning, the commissioning resource that we will get, hopefully through the budget process, will enable us to do that and do some work with the market, with providers, so that they're aware of what we need in West Berkshire, and so can look to how they can deliver it, and we can make sure that that's the right quality and in the right place and actually forward looking. So again, it's about that offer being as broad as it can be and reflecting the current need of pupils within the system, which is a difficult thing to do because I think as you can imagine, establishing new provision and those sort of things is a real commitment, whether that's through an existing provider like iCollege or through a new provider. And we really need to be sure that the resource that goes into making that happen is spent as effectively as possible.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate the time you put in to answer those questions.
Thank you for raising the questions, Trevor, and thank you for the answers, Neil, and all those who have participated as well. Has anyone else got anything to say on this topic? No. In that case, item 14 is our forward plans and contract forward plans. If I can ask everyone to note those and if there are any questions at this time. No. Okay. I can declare that the date of the next meeting is Monday, the 10th of March, 2025. And this will be an in-person meeting. We'll hopefully go back to meeting personally at Shaw House at 5 o'clock. And I welcome everyone so that we can meet each other and across the table instead of tiny boxes on screens. But thank you all very much for your attendance this evening. It's been a very sad meeting in many respects, and I'd like to thank Lisa for taking the reins that poor Melanie has left. And we will remember Melanie in our thoughts and in our prayers. That concludes the business of the meeting. Can I ask that you remain in the Zoom meeting until the host has confirmed that the live stream has been stopped? Thank you all very much indeed, and I wish you a good evening and a happy week.